Welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast, where empathy meets action in the world of leadership. Your host, Gino Degregori, engages with innovators and seasoned professionals from diverse sectors, all demonstrating the power of leading with kindness. And now, your host, Gino Degregori.
Welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Gino Degregori. Today, we have the honor of welcoming Garrett Delph to our podcast. Garrett is an accomplished entrepreneur with over 25 years of experience in building and scaling global businesses, and is the founder of ClarityOps, which specializes in operational efficiency, helping businesses streamline processes, reduce costs, and empower leadership teams to scale effectively. The reason I'm bringing Garrett here is I really appreciated his background and wanted to understand a little bit more on what he does for organizations out there, because it's all about creating leaders and efficiency, and starts with from that perspective. So I'm super excited to have you here as our guest, Garrett. If you can share with our audience a bit about yourself and your background, please.
Sure. Well, Gino, by the way, thank you for having me on your show. It's really great to be here. So, fellow entrepreneur, I sort of stumbled into building business that wasn't part of the original game plan.
Yeah.
So, graduated college, got into corporate America, did that for about 8 years, and increasingly had this baby growing inside of me that I just knew I wanted to work for myself, but I didn't know what that meant.
Right.
So I left corporate America, quit my job, cashed in my 401k, all $13,000 of it.
Nice.
I thought I was rich, right? When you're in your mid-20s, you're like,
right.
dude. And did a couple of little side hustles. And ultimately, that led me into building a photography business. Did that for about 10 years. And that led me into the digital media space and building a digital media company, and then building a back office to support not only that business, but other global businesses that needed back office support. At the end of the day, that took me, through about 25 years of hiring over 550 people and scaling those people worldwide, learning a ton and failing a ton.
Yeah.
But in the end, by God's grace, being in the engine room, I think it was the best learning experiences I could have ever had. And then that really set the table for the launch of ClarityOps, which is now what I do. And we essentially help businesses that are struggling to grow and scale and put hyper emphasis on the engine room, what Dale Carnegie calls the engine room of success.
Nice.
And that is the sorely and mostly neglected part of business, which is operations. It's the 1,000 moving parts in the Formula One engine that need to be synchronized in order to get the speed and get the win.
Right. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you very much for the, congratulations, first of all, and from $13,000 and being able to grow, multi-million-dollar organizations and now leading and helping other companies be successful by improving their operational efficiency is great. So the first question, and I have more questions about that as we navigate, but the first question I have is that I always ask my guests, what does being a kind leader mean to you?
Such a great question, Gino. Well, I would like to preface that my answer is definitely within the confines and the context of business, leadership in business.
Yep.
My definition of a kind leader is respect and care divided by managed expectations.
Wow.
At ClarityOps, which came from my prior years of building business and working with people, we've come up with a little acronym called a slice of pie. As a leader, you should just eat a slice of pie every day, and that pie is an acronym for be professional, have integrity, and be empathetic, or have EQ.
Yeah.
And when pie sits on top of a foundation of managed expectations throughout the organization, I really think that leaders strike gold.
Beautiful. Well said. Thank you very much, Gary. So just pulling the thread on a little bit on that. So the first time I think anybody has described kind leader in a formula. So I like that. So just so our audience catch it again, can you repeat that formula again?
Sure. Yeah. It's respect and care
Respect and care.
divided by managed expectations.
Okay. So respect and care divided by managed expectations. All
Yeah.
right.
You want me to unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to. Yes,
Sure.
please.
Yeah, sure. Well, so here's how that formula came about. Early on, when one of my businesses was starting to have some really good success, we had a lot of people, and I was just really focused on making sure everybody was happy. And it was kind of a, make sure everybody's happy at all costs.
Mhm.
You don't want anybody to be unhappy.
Right.
And so we rolled out the red carpet, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
bought the foosball tables. We bought the in-house basketball hoops that have the, the gaming machine thing.
Yeah.
We created rooms for nap pods, and food was free all the time, anywhere. It was really all about that. This is prior to me understanding the requirement for governance and infrastructure in order to grow and scale. And so we created a ton of happiness. But what we also created was a bunch of people that expected it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they started to expect the happiness more than they were expected to do their job.
Wow. Yeah.
And so that backfired,
Mhm.
and learned some hard lessons through that. And it was very difficult. We know that this whole culture debt thing, and when culture debt sits in, it's really, really difficult to right size it.
Right.
And so, anyways, got through that. And one of my big epiphanies during that season was there has to be managed expectations.
Yeah.
Like, we hire great people, we pay them a lot of money to do a great job. And so we were not load balancing all of the give in care and making people happy with the simultaneous expectation. You actually have to do your job, though.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so yeah. And part of the other part of managed expectations is moving the business towards objective measurement.
Mm-hmm.
And not subjective. So there was I went through a lot of seasons where managers were saying, "Hey, you're not doing your job," and the teammates would say, "Well, what did you expect?" And the managers couldn't communicate objectively what they expected and what success looked like through a measurable lens.
Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
so that causes a ton of confusion, a ton of frustration. So that's sort of, probably 90 seconds to 2 minutes of what the managed expectations part means.
Yeah, I like that, and I appreciate you sharing that formula. And definitely, it's going to be the highlight of or one of the highlights of the conversation here, because when you think of what I heard in the past and other guests and myself, how we describe a kind leader. When people hear the word kind, it's being nice, right? Like, oh, this guy is nice, right? So as you're describing, you're trying to be super nice to your employees. You give them and shower them with gifts and all that stuff. And then the level of expectation goes up on what they're expecting every day coming in and out. That it also includes with salaries and bonus. And that is good for like 1 day or 2 days, and they forget about it. Right. And now it's just part of what they are. Right. So which is good, right? It's good that we wanted that. What I'm saying is we want to take care of our employees and help them grow and all that stuff. But at the same time, where's the win-win? Mm-hmm. And that goes into your managed expectation, or accountability is another word, right? That I like to use as it relates to making sure that it's not just about providing that platform and environment to be successful and happy, but then also what are you giving back to the organization to be successful, to support the mission or the business, right? With our customers, right? Because if we don't have happy employees and we do not have happy customers, we don't have a business.
Oh, no, we don't. Yeah, we don't. All of that time and money and energy spent.
Exactly.
Maybe a good practical example of how this formula works is something like this. Somebody's not doing their job, and the manager goes to them respectfully and says, "Hey, let's chat. I've been looking at your performance." And let's say it's not even a formal performance review.
Right.
It's just we're having some problems.
Right.
Well, I think, for lots of different reasons, and we see this all over LinkedIn, Managers have a bad rap for letting their emotions get involved and being toxic.
Right.
And so that's because they're not respecting. And so they lose their temper, they get frustrated.
Yeah.
So imagine the scenario where a leader goes to somebody and respectfully says, hey, here's what we're up against.
Yeah.
Here's what we're seeing. Here are the facts.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let's talk through it. We both don't point a finger at the employee. We point at the process.
Yeah. Right.
And say, are you following this? How's it?
Right.
Do you disagree? But at the end of the day, the leader leads with respect and care, using objective facts, and maintains pi.
Yeah.
Right. That's a really good example of managed expectations. Here's another really good example of managed expectations. A leader connects with a teammate. Maybe they're having coffee in the break room. Maybe they're playing foosball, having a great time. Maybe they're after work having a beer.
Right.
Maybe they buy them lunch, whatever. But moments later, maybe it's a half an hour, maybe it's a day, maybe it's a couple of hours, but they have to then, right after that act of kindness or good vibes, they also have to have an accountability conversation. Right?
Yeah.
And so to your point, and I think we've both seen this, if you're constantly full of care and kindness and happiness, but you don't balance it out with, we also have a job to do, and you're going to be expected to do your job, and it's my job actually to hold you accountable. And be respectful about it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's some examples of how that stuff plays out.
Great examples. I love them. And then to piggyback on that, I mean, my company that I lead here on the Bravo side, Bravo Consulting Group, is all on the IT, right? And even we have different verticals and different cultures based on the verticals too, because our customers also generate that cultural environment that's required to navigate through that. Because we have some people that work on site on some federal organizations, and they have their own culture, right? And one of the challenges I have is, how do we stay connected, right? How do we provide the respect and care with accountability, right? As it relates to making sure that our folks are leading with kindness, but also delivering value, right? And making sure that they are executing the things that they're supposed to be executing.
Totally. Yeah. 100%.
So one of the things that we like to do, it's actually one of the things that you were saying as it relates to that I like to unpack is, you talk about pie, right? So can we talk a little bit more about that? Because I really like that analogy. You got to eat your slice of pie every day. So
yeah. It's like opposite of eating an apple, but it's really good for you.
Right. This is a good pie though.
Yeah.
So expand on that a little bit more.
Yeah. So that daily slice of pie is professionalism.
Yeah.
And, the high level of professional is Bill Campbell. There's a great book called The $1 Trillion Coach. And it's about Bill Campbell, who was the go-to coach for the big Fortune 100 companies. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. These guys went to Bill Campbell. And Bill Campbell said, it's impossible to be a great leader if you first were not a great manager. And he unpacks that and talks about, in order to be a great manager, you have to be top of game in your business. So you need to be a great planner. You need to understand how to execute plans. You need to understand how to organize and coordinate the plans as they relate to the people. And when you do that effectively, people natively begin to trust you.
Right.
And when they trust you, they respect you. And when they respect you, you are now, by default, because of your demonstrated behavior, a leader.
Yeah.
And so these are professional qualities that a leader has to have. If you don't do what you say you're going to do, if you are conflicting in your statements, if you're subjective in your requirements rather than objective, if you don't have expectations and follow up on those expectations and hold people accountable. This is all the professional stuff.
Professional, yeah, beautiful. Like it.
And then integrity is just good old-fashioned, like, don't be a liar.
Right.
Don't be deceitful. If you fail or you make mistakes, own them publicly, privately, and pursue learning from them. Right. Like, we could go on about both of these so far, professional integrity, but these are the high-level ones.
Right.
And then the EQ, or the empathy, is grace. It is what would historically be, it's undeserved kindness.
Yeah.
It's like when people are going through a tough time or they really blew it, and the world usually would hammer on them, or leaders would hammer on them. EQ says, you know what? We're equals for fellow humans.
Right.
You deserve a break. You deserve understanding. You deserve care. Mm-hmm. That's balanced out with managed expectations, but it's respectful.
Absolutely. No, I love that. And the EQ, it's critical, right? That's from the empathy. It's because nowadays there's so much going on, right? There's so much, you don't know what could be going on in people's mind right now, man. Or families or situation, right? That as a leader, for my recommendation to our listeners that are listening here is like, don't just approach if there's an issue. Somebody didn't deliver a deliverable. They didn't meet the numbers from a sales, or they dropped the ball on something. Don't just go at them like normally, like, what the heck is going on? Like, from that level of like, like anger or disappointment, and be like, hey, Joe or Mary, is everything okay?
Mm-hmm.
How are you?
That's great. 100%.
Like, get to that try to understand what's going on before you bring up the issues, or because it could be that, hey, I'm going through a tough time right now, and I just need, and then be that human, right? That the listener, if you can support that particular scenario and are able to support them at that moment, now you've created that trust. Now you've created that relationship and that commitment. Oh my gosh, they just don't care about the numbers. They care about me and what's going on, and they're willing to navigate through this, right?
Yes. It's great, man.
Yeah.
I'm with you. And I would be amiss to not acknowledge that was not native to me.
Mm.
That kind of behavior and that kind of thinking was not native to me early on and even midway through my career.
Right.
Because I was just all about the win at all cost.
True.
Even at the cost of people.
Yeah.
Which is still the norm.
Right.
Which is why ClarityOps always lobbies for and really urges any business that does not have core values.
Yeah.
Where they have not defined what they believe, so that that belief system can permeate into leadership.
Right.
And then permeate into the 𝗶𝗴𝗵𝘁𝘀𝗴. I always lobby for that, because when you don't, then as an organization, you can't just cross your fingers and hope that leaders are going to get it.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
But I think one of the things now you got me thinking about, the PIE, right, which is pie. I'm gonna try might take that from you, and maybe do a new slogan: kind leaders eat pie daily.
Dude, that's a t-shirt.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I
love it.
T-shirt there. Because it
or
really,
maybe it's a hat.
Right. Not only rhymes, but it's like I don't know. It sounds like it's in line. I definitely admire you for the growth, your accomplishment, but what you're doing with organizations. And you're right. If organizations don't have the core values, and that also, I would say, the clarity that shows the direction on where this company's going, and people are not aligned to that, then you're not going to have a culture, right? You're going to have challenges, right?
Well, so this is funny. You will have a culture, but it will be a culture that defined you instead of you defining it.
Okay. So it's kind of organically.
Yeah. Because cultures happen either by commission or omission. You either create it or it creates you. The latter is the worst, usually.
Yeah.
Because without direction, we have chaos.
Yeah.
And so that's the tricky part. Every business, whether they created it on purpose or they didn't pay attention to it at all, both have culture.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I guess you're definitely 100% right, because if you don't define it, it's already, culture is there. It's happening around you.
Spot on.
Whether you like it or not. So if you're not defining it, it's being defined for you.
That's right.
It may not be the culture that you want, but it's already there. So yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And generally, I think if you don't care, then there is no, it's not what you want because you don't care.
Yeah.
But typically leaders, boards of directors, founders, they care.
Yeah.
I think typically they care. But when you don't define it, like I said, by default, you create variance.
Right.
Because nobody has been guided and directed
Yeah.
and held accountable to uphold what you value.
Right.
And so everybody does their own thing.
Yeah. That's interesting. They gave me a different perspective. Thank you. See, I'm always learning something. We always learning something every day, right?
All of us do. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Does that go back? And one more thing as it relates to your organization that I liked is the P3 principle, right? The people, process, and performance, right? As it relates to helping organizations. And the reason I like bringing this up is because as an individual, right? Whether I am a founder, you're a founder, or a CEO, C-level, or a manager, I think understanding what you can do or influence in your organization is critical too, right? Because we're talking about the culture creates themselves if you don't define it. But what if somebody is just an employee, as quote unquote, I'm just an employee. I don't really have anything to do, or I can't really change anything. But I want to emphasize that I feel like people can. There's so much influential power that people, I feel, can contribute, that can slowly, organically kind of build it up, right? I know I went sideways on you. I was talking about the P3, but then I went on the individual thing, person. But what do you think about that?
Oh, I have so many thoughts. I agree with you, by the way. Well, let me clarify that. I agree with you that teammates, employees, basically anybody who's not a founder or a CEO, they have so much to contribute. And so that's what I agree with.
Yeah.
And that's because of my epiphany over the years, realizing on an org chart, even the lowest level person sometimes are the smartest people in the room.
Oh, yeah.
Position and title has nothing to do with intelligence.
Right.
And I think that behooves you and I to remember this daily. And I think it behooves any founder or anybody who's in charge of hiring people, And so this leads into the other thought you had, allowing these people, or these people should rise up and contribute. And my experience has been in both on the consulting side of the fence and on the business ownership side of the fence. If you don't permit those super intelligent people to contribute, they won't.
Yeah.
What they'll do is either they'll stay in grudge or they'll leave in haste.
Yeah.
But they won't contribute because the company doesn't permit it.
Yeah.
And so this goes back to values.
Yeah.
And so if you value your people, if you care for your people, and you realize that when you hire, if you purpose to hire great people, you're always going to hire super intelligent people, and it's in your best interest to harness that, then you have to make provision for it.
Yeah.
And when you make provision for it by design, dude, we both know amazing things come back.
Yep. Absolutely. I've experienced that, both ends too. Like I've, learned the hard way on what culture not having those core values do. And it's not just lip service either, right? I mean, I've been, say, yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And it's not that we don't want to do that or commit that. Sometimes things get in the way, but that is the problem, right? I think it's prioritizing.
Yeah.
And making sure you're focusing and putting all your energy. I don't know if you heard the terminology where focus goes, energy flows. Right.
Yeah.
And and there's so much as in the business that, as a leader, you're, if you're at C-level, whatever, and you get so many things, but what's going to continue to help your company grow? And if you don't have the right processes and you're not putting the right focus on the things that are really going to impact, I almost use the word 10x, right? Your organization.
Yeah, man.
It's going to continue to stagnate, right?
Yeah, I love it. I really do appreciate your thought on prioritizing it.
Yeah.
Like it could be as simple as having an open house innovation meeting once a month.
Yeah.
Where everybody is invited to come into a town hall and share their opinions publicly. Like that would be one example of prioritizing and inviting people to contribute. But you also can do that at the team level.
Yeah.
You could do that once a week. You could do that once a month.
Yeah.
And then the trick is in addition to prioritizing it, is when these great people give great ideas, do something with it. Nothing works for the culture than to, prioritize and then get all these great ideas. And then the culture learns, they mean well, but they're not going to do anything with it.
Right. Yeah, they're nice and, they're kind, but,
And we have these like really fun meetings about, all of my great ideas, but they never do anything. So I'm not going to share anymore.
So I would say, going back even full circle to, the formula you create about the kind leader, it's not just on the individual or the leader doing it, but it's also like you look at the company itself. The company needs to make sure that we are also accountable, right? Or
totally
expect, you know what I mean? Right? So,
because if we don't, 100%.
Yeah, because if we're not, we're expecting our folks, we're giving them everything, and we're expecting our folks to be accountable, right? And set the right expectation. We should also be doing the same thing.
Yes.
And not just, right?
ClarityOps, we call it a lever that leaders should pull, which is called co-lead, co-follow. And this helps leadership get perspective and be reminded about nobody is better or worse around here. This is all about team, and we just have roles to play. And so remember, you might be a leader, but you are a servant and also a follower contextually.
Yeah.
And this really helps with the accountability mindset. So leaders don't get on their high horse and feel like they're above the rest.
Yeah.
That's we both know that's a recipe for
100%
disaster.
Yeah. And thankfully, my parents always taught me to be humble. My grandfather was, so I was born in Peru, South America, came here when I was 10. And my grandfather was, he had a small business in Peru. He was a plumber, right?
Okay.
Plumber, but did such a great job that he was doing plumbing for embassies and higher level government officials and that kind of stuff. Now, I always remember what he told me. He's like, success sometimes makes people think that they're more powerful than others. And that is the worst thing that you can do. He's like, humbleness is something that needs to be within you. No matter how successful you're being, no matter how much money you have or everything, you have to stay humble. Because you need to understand that it's the hard work that you put in there. And then you need to be able to help others too. Get rise into the different things that they're trying to do. So I always remember my grandfather, such a hard worker and such a entrepreneur, right? I think that's where I got my entrepreneurship from.
Right.
I think.
It came in the blood.
Yeah. So, but humbleness has always been a thing, and you can't lead a successful. And that's why, from a kind leadership perspective, and I feel the world is changing, right? I think with how we are leading now, people are hungry for different types of leadership, right? And this is one of the reasons I kind of put this together, and to show that there are amazing kind leaders in this world, like yourself, Garrett, and other guests that I have, and future guests that are going to be coming into the podcast. So,
yeah, that's so great. What a great story, dude.
Thank you.
It's a really great story.
I appreciate that. So speaking of kind of looking at as we're coming to an end here, what do you think the vision of future leadership looks like? Because you're working in, with companies and helping them with the organizational things and stuff like that, and leading people. I'm sure you're seeing the shift. And what do you think the future leaders look like?
Yeah. Well, definitely seeing a shift. From my diagnosis is it's coming from Gen Z. And Gen Z appears to no longer, or they're unwilling to tolerate the win at all cost, which is a win at the cost of the people's mental health and heart health and stability.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that's going to land, because businesses, especially for profit, they still need to profit, or nobody has a job.
Right.
But I do agree with you. It's going to show up in a form of care. But here's what I don't know. I don't know if the old guard will ultimately win or lose.
Interesting.
And the reason I say that is, at the end of the day, the for-profit environment is still fierce. Like at the end of the day, we still know that 9 in 10 businesses fail. This is still happening.
Yeah.
And so, that said, here's what I do know, and I do know I can control.
Right.
And that is, I do think there is a recipe to win
Right.
with and for the people where their stress is low, their happiness is high, they're satisfied, they have a path to elevate in their career, and the business still wins and profits. I do know there's a recipe for that.
Yep.
And for any business that will lock into that recipe, they'll have a much, much better chance of succeeding. And I really do think they and their people will be much happier. That I do know, Gino.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I feel like I'm a cook over here trying to find that recipe myself too, right?
Right. Yeah, cook's a good one, man. Yeah.
Because you're right. At the end of the day, those from a for-profit organization, you got to grow the company, and you have to stay profitable, right?
Yeah.
And I believe, how do you implement that profit into your organization, right? It's critical, right? I think it's how do you invest back into the things that are important, right? It's going to set us apart. It's going to allow us to put that money, that investment into the right things, right? And obviously the shareholders as well. But the reality is, the vision that I have is, it's a global organization of kind leaders that, that are delivering value to our customers, that are empowering our customers with simplifying their technologies. And that's a big vision that I have. Who knows? I feel like I'm going to get it, but what timeline? I don't know, right? But the reality is that I am looking for that formula, and I'm trying to figure out, always tweaking and trying to figure out what is a good balance. And I love your definition with that, using that formula, that I'm going to start kind of playing with that. And then making sure that our people are eating pie as well every day. So I really like that connection.
It's healthy diet, right?
That's right. It's
Gino, is your vision for your company, or is this a vision for a global workforce of kind leaders? I wasn't clear on that.
I was originally thinking myself, but as I doing this more and more and more, I think there's an appetite right now, right? And that formula is not known yet, but it's a global. It's a shift into, I think organizations can do this, right?
Yeah.
Organizations can lead, an amazing, still make money, profitable every year, and growth, and still treat their people right.
Yes.
Integrity's in there and all that stuff. I'm 100%. That's where I see a global, organization, not only just myself, but everybody emulating that and building it out.
I love it, man.
So we'll see.
I'm a big fan.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I've had an amazing, experience learning about you, learning about the different perspective as you define it here. But one question that I have for you is, if you could have coffee with anyone alive or from the past, who would it be and why?
Yeah, that's great. So, I mean, tough. There's a ton of people I'd love to go have coffee with. But the one person that comes to mind is a guy that wrote a book called It's Your Ship. His name's Michael Abrashoff. He's a highly decorated naval captain that transformed the Navy through everything we're talking about here. As a matter of fact, I'm going to send you the book. I think you'd really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I would love to sit down and have coffee with that guy.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, because he really did. He was really a first of its kind in this very militant environment where, if anything, there was no care there. And he brought this idea of humanity to the ship, and respect, and this idea of we are all equal. We just all have different jobs to do, but let's unite.
Right.
And let's do that in a respectful fashion, a caring fashion, and a kind fashion. And he flipped the script and killed it. The amount of success on lots of layers in his career, his 20 years, was immeasurable, actually.
Yeah. Wow.
And then had a ripple effect of influence in the Navy on those people that came up behind him.
That's amazing.
Would love to have coffee with this guy.
Yeah, me too. And it's surprising because, military, and I was not in the military, but I work with a lot of military folks. We hire a lot of military folks, and is that structure, right? There's so structure into the, and I understand why they do that from a, you going into war, you got to respect the,
Yes.
the line and all that stuff, right? But we'd love to read that book and understand his perspective and because one of my goals for this podcast is to have some military generals here or some high level CEOs too that are like, for example, the Microsoft CEO.
Right.
He's all about growth mindset and empathy and stuff like that. So I'm connected now with him through LinkedIn. I'm working my way to try to bring him over. So we'll see.
Nice, dude.
But it's
as you were sharing there, I just had a thought. I think there's a misconception that kindness will make people soft.
Yes,
100%.
100%.
That care and respect will make them soft. That's not true. That's a big fat lie.
Absolutely.
It will make people strong.
Yes, absolutely.
It will unite them.
Yep.
And you end up 10xing your ROI.
100%. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's funny. I was, one last thing, and I know we got to close it up here. Yeah. I had a mentor, actually. I was grateful enough that this guy grew, I'm not going to name the name, but he grew this large organization into $1 billion organization. I was fortunate that I was able to talk to this person. And I said, hey, let me tell you about my company. Here's what I'm doing. And I was listing out the core values, and I threw kindness in there. Yeah. And he's an old guard, like you said. He's like, I don't know about that. And he wasn't mean about it, but he's like, kindness in the business side, which it threw me off, but it's like, it kind of fueled a little bit on my end. It's like, we're going to make it work. This is who I am and what we have in the organization. And I believe, just because it didn't work in the past, because he was thinking business and driving, and when you put that kindness, his mentality, I think, is that soft thing that you just said, right? And it's not. Yeah, it's going to make us stronger. At the end of the day,
100%.
So, well, thank you, Garrett, for being part of this podcast. An amazing session. Where can our listeners? I know we're going to put stuff in the notes here, but where can our listeners find you?
Oh, thanks, Gino. I'm on LinkedIn. So Garrett Delph is my handle there. And then the website, ClarityOps.co. Don't put in .com because it'll go somewhere else.
Oh, no.
That was like, that URL was like $75,000 or something.
Oh my gosh. Like, yeah, I'm good. Well, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you again. Any final thoughts?
The formula. Yeah. In addition to eating your daily slice of pie, and, wrapping that in respect and care, of course. Just remember, when it comes to business, you cannot manage what you cannot measure. That's probably the biggest lesson I learned along the way.
Beautiful. Well said. Thank you very much, Garrett. And for our listeners, thank you very much for joining us and staying with this conversation. And I look forward to more episodes. I know this will be episode 28, and 𝗶₶ season 1 over here pretty soon in December. We'll start season 2 next year. So I'm super excited to continue the audience and the growth. If you guys have any feedback on guests that you guys recommend, would like to hear, please send them my way as well. So with that, I'll leave you with my last thing is be kind, bring value, rise together.